The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
It's like a case of deja vu all over again. I can't help but feel like we've done this weekend. Welcome to the Kickoff. Good evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening here. It is technically Sunday morning here on the East Coast. My name is Harry Broadhurst. I am your host. Joining me, as per usual, the executive producer turned co-host, Erik Watkins.
Same old attempt at a podcast, a new round of NFL players being idiots, and death. More on that next week.
The co-host turned executive producer, Brandon Biskobing, who's in the middle of a coughing fit.
Yeah. And hey, we have some real sports, some team sports on tomorrow morning, but that's for a different show.
Technically speaking, team sports kind of returned today to the United States with the FS1 broadcast of the Bundesliga.
Well, okay, correction. Today started it, but tomorrow is the day that I really care because my team is playing tomorrow.
I don't know what he's talking about.
For Bundesliga, Bayern.
Bayern Munich, okay.
Yes.
And
more reason why I kind of want to root for Gladbach right now. No, okay, half offense.
And the not-so-silent co-owner, the unprofessional, Jason Teasley.
Sup, fuckers?
That's one. I'm guessing this show's not going to coach either.
Nope. Not a chance.
Okay, yeah, that whole sponsorship thing, is that still gonna be a thing? Because, if it isn't, then I've got a few things that I need to get off my chest.
We're looking at you, Jason.
And I'm looking back at you.
He's mid-Coca-Cola, though. I don't think it's only Coca-Cola in that can. Anyway, all right, real quick, before we get into tonight's episode, we are here to gather to give you guys the greatest of all teams, AFC North edition. We will be doing them in alphabetical order. However, we have a couple of things to touch on before we get to the greatest of all teams. The first of which is, I won't do the full spiel that I did in the last episode of the show, but tonight's episode of the Kickoff is dedicated to the memory of Steve DJ Fish. Rest in peace, good brother. And as I mentioned last night as well, and you weren't here for it, you won't hear me say Bisko's got the Rona anymore on the show. Like I said last night, this virus became very real over the course of the past week for me. All right. So we did a news and notes episode last night. Bisko was unavailable at the time. However, he has stated an interest in giving his thoughts on the news and notes that we went over. Therefore, it is at this time that I turn the floor over to Erik Watkins, our anchor man. Oh my God, you're Eric Burgundy.
Stay classy, W2M. I like scotch. Scotchy.
All right. So Erik and Brandon are going to run through Brandon's thoughts on the news and notes section, and then we'll come right back with the greatest of all teams, part 2, AFC North. Erik, the floor is yours.
Alrighty, so going to cover it a little bit in here, giving the nuts and bolts. The first topic that we teased the last week, and I wanted to get your thoughts on, Brandon, CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie went to Parliament in Ottawa and said, hey, we need $150 million. This season's pretty much canceled, but without that game day revenue from ticket sales, the league as a whole is pretty screwed going into the future. I hope Justin Trudeau steps up. I want them to step up, especially for potential expansion, but no news is not so good news in this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Canada is in a much different spot than we are in terms of the virus and everything. So we'll see how that all plays out. Would I like to see the CFL survive? Obviously. But I'm curious to see if the NFL maybe takes an interest and sees and tries to do something with it, kind of an a la NFL Europe type thing. But the issue with that is going to be obviously that they are two completely different. Well, not completely different, but there are certain rule differentials that I don't know how that would be handled.
So you're basically get rid of the CFL as it was and turn it into NFL Canada?
Essentially, yeah.
No, I think you could still do CFL as CFL, just have the NFL's backing as kind of a developmental system, similar to what they were doing to a lesser extent with the AAF.
Or essentially have it as its own company, just that the NFL is subsidizing it, basically like ECW with WWF back in the day.
For our non-wrestling fans, he's referring to Extreme Championship Wrestling, which for a while was receiving monthly checks from the World Wrestling Federation for the usage of Too Cold Scorpio as Flash Funk, as well as the fact that ECW would receive money from Too Cold Scorpio's theme song on a monthly basis.
Yep.
All right, Eric, take two.
Secondary ticket values. The numbers have hit the market, and I'm not going to give Harry any more crap for Buffalo's insanely low average of only $179, but I am curious about teams like Tampa Bay who have gotten a bump. Teams like the Patriots who, while still in the upper threes to mid fours, have really taken a hit, and naturally, it's all about Vegas, baby. They're number one. 500 just to get in the door.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this works as we go further towards the season, and whether or not there are even the potential of fans and all of that. This year is going to be very weird on that level, because I think we can all agree that even if there are fans allowed in the stadium, I don't think they're going to be allowed to be full capacity. So that will jack up the prices even more than they are already.
That actually ties into the next question that Eric's going to ask. Third down.
All right. So, speaking of football and fans and stadiums and things, over in college, we all know Mark Emmert has said if campuses aren't open, don't expect to play. Well, the California State University system, of which 3 Mountain West schools are a part of, they have said they're going online only for the fall semester. And in a somewhat related note, with the Pac-12, they have joined the chorus that is now the SEC, the Big Ten, and the ACC discussing only conference games being played. And then on top of that, we're seeing more victims in the lower college ranks, which I know you appreciate even well to an extent. Florida Tech, a Division II school on the rise, just cut their football program 2 years after making a playoff appearance. And the Division II California Collegiate Athletic Conference has said, we're not having any fall sports whatsoever. The tide is turning.
Yeah, it's going to be a...
Wait, real quick.
Oh, okay.
There's an actual question attached to this
okay,
one here.
okay. Sorry.
The question that is attached to this particular news and note story is do you believe that we will see actual college and NFL seasons this year? We start with college.
Are we talking full-on college season with both in-conference and out-of-conference schedules?
Yes.
Then no. I do not think there is a chance in hell that we are going to get that. I think the best case scenario, and this is extra best case scenario. Either best case or worst case based on how you look at it, honestly, is that the SEC and perhaps SEC, probably ACC, Big 12, potentially the Big 10, but I don't think the Pac-12. I think those four will play some sort of schedule of some type and try to get some games in. Everyone else outside of the Power 5, I don't think they will play.
I think that you might get a couple of the major schools that have football income playing outside of the Power 5, your Boise States and stuff, because of the fact that is the big money cow for that university. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to get involved with some of the other colleges in that area and organize some kind of setup for games.
That's going to be the issue, though, especially for a team like Boise State. The only schools in their area are going to be schools that are affected by their states more than likely still being shut down. You know, you've got Oregon, who has already said no large gatherings until I think October or November. You've got California, which is they already shut down the Cal State system. I would not be surprised if the UC system gets shut down shortly thereafter. So you're going to have an issue with finding teams to play.
All right, what about the NFL? Do you think we see a full 16-game NFL schedule?
This all depends upon two things. One is where we're at with the virus and with everything that's going on by, I'm going to give them July. Maybe mid-July would be the cutoff. And then that's the first thing. And then the second is how willing the owners and the players are to be playing in front of, at the very least, less than 50% capacity stadiums. Because
I'm thinking that
Go ahead.
Real quick, I'm thinking that it's going to be a situation of expanded TV contracts for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're going to get more games nationally broadcast this year in order to make up some of the revenue that they're losing from the fans not being in the stands.
How would they do that, though, in terms of... I mean, the only thing I can think of is putting a national game on ESPN in the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock slots. But you're not going to... Unless you're able to expand the contracts and figure out the TV situation for CBS and Fox affiliates as well, and then maybe you could bring in NBC as well. Unless you're going to have games on like TNT and TBS and True TV and stuff like that, basically like the NCAA tournament, I don't see how you'd be able to get all 16 games in 1 week.
See, that's how I think it could happen, though, is by doing expanded national coverage and giving more people options on games to watch by having games. For CBS having games on True TV or on TNT and TBS, and for Fox having games
on FS1 and 2.
Fox Sports 1 and even something like an FX, because I'm sure FX and a game on FX would do big numbers as well.
True. So, yeah, I mean, if they could, if it is a situation where they have the go-ahead to play, but they can't get any fans to the games, then yes, I could totally see that happening where they expand the TV contract for this year to air every single game nationally.
See, this is something we didn't really discuss last night, so I kind of want to get Erik and Jason's thoughts on this here. Erik, I'll start with you. Would you be okay with an expanded national TV coverage for the season in order to give, A, an opportunity for the NFL to earn more money from a TV revenue situation by picking up the secondary markets and stuff with these extra games, and B, giving fans an opportunity, a more widespread opportunity to see their teams, since they're going to be limited as to how many fans can actually get into the state, most likely how many fans can get into the stadium on a week-to-week basis?
Oh, I am completely for that. And this is what I was really tying into when you mentioned fan capacity at stadiums. Number one, and I didn't really answer this the last time, but I do think that both seasons will be abbreviated. College, we're probably only going to see a lot of conference games and conference seasons. And with the NFL, I not only think that there will be a delay to the season, but I think that it will be for the first time since '77 that there will only be a 14-game regular season schedule. That said, if you already have stadiums like Hard Rock in Miami preparing and setting up, proper social distancing, coming in and leaving in waves, and reducing a capacity from normally 65,000 down to only 15,000, if all these other stadiums follow suit, I completely agree for an expansion of the contracts just for this year. Like you said, CBS, you have CBS Sports Network, True TV, TBS, TNT. For Fox, you have FS1, FS2, FX. Even for NBC, if you were to really expand to that, do like how they would have for when they have Championship Sunday in the Premier League. They have potentially 10 different networks at their disposal. MSNBC, CNBC, all of these others, that if you can fill those 16 games, scatter them all across, have them all throughout the weekend. I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, it doesn't need to be a network-specific broadcast either. I mean, you could still have the announcers that are provided by the specific networks and stuff. It's just you could kind of substitute the expenses for the broadcasters by working with the other networks. Jason, what's your thoughts on this here? Do you think we can see an expanded TV contract in 2020 to get more games on the air with diminished capacity in stadiums?
Nope. I think that everything's going to go back to normal and will be by the time the season kicks off.
Optimism, thy name is Jason.
I mean, the fact that Joe Buck is saying, hey, if need be, there could be artificial crowd noise being pumped into the broadcast just in case, that tells you where at least some of the top brass of the networks are leaning toward.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's basically looking at this like, we don't know what's going to happen. We have to prepare for every eventuality. I felt like I had a question, but now I'm drawing a blank.
It's okay. We need to get going here. So, hey, Erik, somebody at the show screwed up. It's 5th down.
Hey, we're Missouri playing against Colorado.
Day after Thanksgiving strikes again.
So, we're all familiar with the Rooney Rule. We all know about the ratio, how I believe there's only, 4 black head coaches in the NFL and only, 2 executives? Well, Goodell in his wisdom, the owners are putting it to a vote. Why not give everybody the incentive for hiring people of color in key positions by bumping up their draft positions? You could be going up as many as 16 spots if you hire both a head coach and a general manager of color in the same year. And that would immediately come into effect before the beginning of their second year. Personally, even with the extra rules that I'm not going into about 3rd round and 4th round and 5th round and compensatory position or picks based upon different position coaches, I think it's stupid. And if anything, you're going to set the league back several years.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because I think, if anything, this is going to make teams that are trying to figure out a way to move up in the draft by this means just decide to hire, just hire anyone that is on the market that they can use to do this. And then when it fails, then they're gonna, they'll figure out some sort of excuse as to, oh, this is stupid or something like that. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. And one quick question that I just remembered it before we move on. Erik, you probably know this better than anyone. And when it comes to the season, especially with LA, are those stadiums completely done?
For SoFi Stadium, not entirely, but construction has still been ongoing.
Oh, okay, yeah, so it has still
that
been...
That market has ballooned to over $6 billion by some accounts.
But they're still doing construction. That hasn't stopped.
Correct.
Oh, okay. See, I thought with the stay-at-home order and everything that they had to halt.
All right. I mentioned it in the chat. Unfortunately, we're running a little bit longer than anticipated for the news and notes section here for Brandon to catch up a bit. So, Brandon, what we're going to do is when we pick up next week's story with the news coming out of Washington and the redacteds, apparently yet more competition for dumbest NFL player. We'll get your opinion on the Dunbar story that came out this week then.
And I, especially considering we'll be talking about both at the same time, I will have a lot to talk about, so be sure to tune in then.
All right, let's get to the greatest of all teams, AFC North edition here, gentlemen. Just due to the fact that we are running on kind of a time crunch here, I want to be able to get as much in as we can because Jason's had a long couple of days, as you guys will remember from last night's episode, and apparently Grandpa needs some sleep. I'm calling you old, Jason.
He's so out of it, he doesn't even realize.
I realize what's going on. I'm just making sure that, I'm still allowed to do the podcast.
He's figuring out ways to fire me, actually, I think. I'm pretty sure. Probably. All right, let's get to it. We start in Baltimore. As I said, we're going to do this alphabetically. And Baltimore offensively is going to be interesting, I think. Definitely. All right, go alphabetical. Brandon.
I forgot to do my homework on this, and I was thinking we were going alphabetically by team name, so give me a second. Go.
All right.
That would be Baltimore.
No, I said I thought we were going alphabetically by team name, not by city name.
No, we're going alphabetically by city because that's the way that the NFL would do it. All right, we'll come back to him last for this question here. We'll start with Erik.
While I want to give a mention to Lamar Jackson for everything that he's done just the past couple of seasons, and with what Jamal Lewis did that particular 2000 season, let's face it, even though he had a couple down years after that, because the franchise is so new, I gotta give my respect to Brent Dilfer. I mean, he's the only guy that could come in and get a man down from his roof after a month. And yes, this was a real story.
We kind of teased this last week when we did our greatest of all teams, that one of these teams, one of us was going to pick a kicker. Well, it's happening here in Baltimore, and it's yours truly doing it. I'm picking Justin Tucker with an honorable mention to Matt Stover right before. Although a lot of people would probably put Stover more in the Browns' history rather than the Ravens' history. That being said, Tucker has been one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history. 99% of his extra point conversions and somewhere in the neighborhood of about 85% of his field goals as well. I had the exact numbers in front of me, but unfortunately the website refreshed, and I don't feel like waiting for it to unrefresh. So I'm going with Justin Tucker.
Dude
Jason?
can sing Carmen. Oh, beautifully.
I refer to the group chat where I actually put the idea in Harry's mind, I believe, because I actually said I might be going to kicker. It was a toss-up. I was really leaning for Tucker. I think he is like really high up there, but I had to go Jamal Lewis simply because, I mean, he was a beast in Baltimore. I mean, and it's going to kind of dovetail into my defensive player here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Jamal Lewis was a beast in Baltimore. I really wanted to go Tucker, but, you know, I didn't want to steal Harry's thunder once he revealed that he was going Tucker. I mean, I don't think you could go wrong with going either Lewis or Tucker either way on that one.
Bisko?
Yeah, with an honorable mention, because I think it's a little too early to say this, but I do think as long as he stays healthy and as long as he continues playing the way he did last year and he can get over that hump, I think Lamar Jackson will certainly be in this conversation if we were to do this again 6 or 7 years from now. But I know he gets a lot of flack. But I have to go with I have to go with Flacco because you know he didn't have the greatest of careers, but you know he was good enough. Yes, a lot of people say, oh, they had the defense carrying them and everything, but you're not going to be a terrible quarterback and lead a team to a Super Bowl.
I'm about to piss off Jason here. Joe Flacco was to the Ravens what Jim McMahon was to the Bears.
I agree.
How would that piss me off?
I mean, technically speaking, you could almost make the same comparison with Flacco as you would with Dilfer there, because Dilfer was the quarterback for that 2000 Ravens team, right, Erik?
Yes, he was. He did not start the entire season with that 2000 team. He came in and replaced Tony Banks.
So this means that we're going to have to take this one to a vote because we have 4 different picks for Ravens offensive best player, which tells you how shitty their offensive best players is in their franchise history.
Technically, no, because I did say Tucker was my one.
Justin Tucker, yeah, you did lean Justin Tucker before going with Jamal Lewis.
So we would need a ruling on that because, I mean, my honorable mention was Tucker.
But honorable mentions do not count. It's our official picks.
Yeah, because
all right, I will change my official pick to Justin Tucker. Tie broke.
I was about to say, because technically speaking, if honorable mentions counted, then Lamar Jackson's in this conversation too.
No, because, well, you know, they actually got to be in the league more years than Eli has Super Bowl rings.
All right, let's move on to the Ravens defense here. And we kind of discussed this one off air last week, and we all agreed it was pretty much a 2-horse race for Ravens defensively. Erik, you lead us off.
I mean, come on. Number 52, the dance, the heart, the soul of that defense, straight from the U. Can you argue against Ray Lewis? I mean, realistically.
So, does look like Harry's going to lose this one because
I
also said Ray Lewis.
Yep. I mean, you've got. Yes, he has all of his off the field issues, but you know, on the field, you gotta go with Ray Lewis.
I'm not saying the NFL is a place for choir boys because history has proven that it's not. But when you have somebody whose career stats for his position have equaled, matched, or bettered Ray Lewis, and you have less of the off-the-field drama that you had from Lewis as well, 61 career interceptions in NFL, a Baltimore Ravens record, and I believe the all-time NFL lead as well. 7 career interceptions.
I think for career interceptions, the all-time lead is like 75?
Well, it's certainly the Ravens team record.
Yes.
Tied for the most NFL interceptions returned for touchdowns with 7. Tied for the longest interception return for a touchdown with 107. The most career interception return yards in NFL history with almost 1,600. I'm saying Ed Reed.
Also from?
Shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2. All right, so we're officially designating Justin Tucker and Ray Lewis for Baltimore then?
Yes.
Sure.
This is some bullshit.
Look, Jason's the one being the not-so-silent, unprofessional co-owner and changing his mind all the time.
Erik.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati. Offense.
Again, I have a couple of honorable mentions. Anthony Munoz anchoring that offensive line, a very, very, very close second. And a lesser-known quarterback in Virgil Carter, who led a very dynamic, all-round-led Bengals offense to a shocking division title back in 1970. But if you think Brown, or if you think Bengals, you think offense, I gotta go with Boomer Esiason. Yes, he had guys like Ickey Woods and everybody with those 8 teams in the mid-'80s, including Chris Collinsworth. But really, to be the guy and the help to lead that offense to 2 Super Bowl appearances.
All right. My pick is Chad Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
With an honorable mention to another wide receiver currently active with the Bengals in A.J. Green. Chad Johnson has 751 career catches as a Bengal for over 10,000 yards. The thing about Chad Johnson is people were so focused on the persona of Chad Johnson that they did not realize just how good of a player he actually was.
It's not to mention kicking an extra point also helped.
It's one of those things where you realize that he did a lot of what he did in order to get in people's head, but at the same time, more often than not, Johnson backed it up on the field. Mm-hmm. Jason.
Well, I like I said, I mean, Munoz was my pick, with an honorable mention going to Ickey. But thinking about it again, I'm honestly going to switch up and say that there's no person synonymous with the Bengals, I mean, especially currently, than the player that Harry just mentioned, and that's A.J. Green. I think a lot of people don't give him the credit because he has been on an anemic team, but he has been a solid player. He's had a middle of the road quarterback, which, I mean, you know, you could say about Boomer. Boomer was never a great quarterback. He was a middle of the road quarterback, did just enough to win.
True.
So, you know, he didn't light up stats sheets or anything. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with AJ. I really wanted to go with the offensive lineman just to shake things up, but yeah, I mean AJ right now is synonymous with the Bengals. He's been a cornerstone of that offense. I just hate the fact that now that they've got a franchise quarterback and everything, he's in the twilight of his career, and he won't get the benefit from that.
602 catches, 8,907 yards for AJ. The thing is Chad Johnson's career totals were in 10 seasons in Cincinnati. AJ Green's are basically in 7.
It's accounting for the injuries and everything.
Well, the main one is he lost most of 2 seasons. 2016, he only played 10 games. 2018, he only played 9 games. 2019, he played about 3 downs. Brandon?
Yeah, I'm gonna
tie right now.
Yeah, I am breaking the tie. I will be giving an honorable mention to one of the other ones, however. That honor
Boomer.
What?
I know he is. You're picking Boomer, and I know you are.
False. The
Oh,
honorable mention is going to Boomer. But I am picking the Ocho Cinco.
Yes! Victory! I'll take this one. All right. Erik, Cincinnati defensively. Good luck.
Are you kidding? I still couldn't find anybody.
I've got one.
I have my pick as well.
I have mine.
We kind of talked about him in the group chat, so don't you dare take him, Erik.
No, I'm not taking him. I'm going to need a minute.
Do you want me to go?
While Erik is looking, then, Bisko, you want to fire off?
Sure. 4-time All-Pro, 65 interceptions, 5 touchdowns, 1 Ken Riley.
Yeah, that was who my pick was as well. If you check the group chat, I think that's the only player you can honestly look back through the history of the Bengals and see as a legit defensive threat in Cincinnati.
See, I'm going to disagree with that because of who my pick is. 75.5 career sacks, 383 combined tackles, but in fairness, playing on the defensive line, not really a surprise. I'm going Geno Watkins. Also led the Cincinnati team on the defensive side to 4 postseason appearances in the early to mid 2010s.
And see, I was myself leaning toward Tim Krumrie, but yeah, the stats are just blown out of the water, sadly.
Erik, we need an official pick.
Tim Krumrie. That is my official pick. Leaning toward it and making a solid case, but not solid enough.
So that gives defensive Cincinnati to Ken Riley then?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 4 positions decided, 4 more to pick. We'll take a quick second here and let everybody know that we are a presentation of the W2M Network. We are online at W2Mnet.com. Make sure you guys keep an eye out as the site is evolving and starting to get more and more content published. Even getting a podcast the very next day, Erik. I'm impressed.
Well, again, had there not been things going on at 4 a.m. and different glitches with the site, it would have been up faster. But yeah, I work on these things, no matter what sort of SEO hurdles that I have to conquer. ...
And to that end, all hate mail in regards to our SEO hurdles can be sent to s.garmer@gmail.com. All right, let's move on. We go back to Ohio, or stay there, I guess, technically. But we go up to the mistake on the lake. We head up to Cleveland, and I believe this one was unanimous.
On the offensive end, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive side is unanimous here. It's obviously going to be Jim Brown for all 4 of us. There is no...
Oh, shit.
Quiet, Jason.
I was going to Manziel.
Obviously, it's going to be Jim Brown here, the face of the franchise. And I know that Erik told me I was wrong here, but in my opinion, the man the franchise is named after.
Yep.
Although technically speaking, the man that the franchise is actually named for is Cincinnati for Jim Brown. He came up with the name the Bengals.
So you see? The little extra squid bit minus the squid.
Actually, it was because of squid that I looked it up. So it was a squid bid by proxy.
You're welcome, America.
Indubitably.
So does that mean it was like an inkling?
Okay, that was good. Well played, Jason. Speaking of which, Jason, defense, Cleveland, fire off.
No, I'm not doing it. Y'all can eat my ass. But I will give you a pick. It is a...
I don't remember who I selected.
A name synonymous with the NFL. And when I say this, a lot of people may question who and not know that this football family does have a patriarch that was an outstanding defensive player for the Cleveland Browns. And that is one Clay Matthews Jr. A lot of people are real familiar with Clay Matthews III, who is an offspring.
My original pick for Green Bay before I was reminded of the existence of Reggie White.
Yes. So, Clay Matthews Jr., he started the lineage of the Matthews clan in the NFL. And, he was just an all-out pounder for the Browns defense. So I don't think that you could go into any conversation on the defensive side for the Browns and not have to at least have Clay Matthews Jr. in the conversation.
Bisko.
I'm going with an older pick from the 50s, 4-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first-team All-Pro, and that is one Len Ford.
Erik.
Harry, I know we've talked about it. I know we've talked about this. I'm still going to do it. My pick, former Brown, now crossing enemy lines.
I disagree with this pick, but go ahead.
Joe Hayden. Because, seriously, you talk about, especially with defenses, with a lot of the pressure being on the secondary, he was pretty much a shutdown guy in that second level. There's kind of a modern-day Tom Darden, if you will.
We are going to have to take this to a vote inside of the chat because we have 4 different picks.
Damn, I'm disappointed in myself. Erik just reminded me of something, and Jason did before. I should have given an honorable mention for the Bengals defensive player to Perfect.
Brandon Biskobing, asshole. I stand by what I just said, Erik. Brandon Biskobing, asshole. All right. My pick is Joe Sherbert. For only 4 seasons in Cleveland, so I'm not going to say that the resume is fantastic. However, on those 4 seasons in Cleveland, a first-team All-NFL selection, including leading the league in tackles, averaging north of 100 tackles a season despite only having 28 in his first season as a rookie, then going 144, 103, and 133. 3 fumble recoveries, 6 interceptions for a defensive linebacker as well, which is an impressive number for somebody that plays in the kind of defensive system that they play up in Cleveland. Sherbert is a guy that changes offensive schemes around him. Whereas I don't know that Hayden was the same guy. Not to mention there's also the whole crossing enemy lines thing for Hayden that I think will not sit well with Cleveland Brown fans.
I got a question, and this is a legitimate question because I totally forgot about this person, but I do think he fits the criteria of being a defensive player as he was a kick returner, and that's Josh Cribbs. I think that
Cribs would be offensive because he was also a wide receiver.
Yeah, he's more known as a wide receiver.
Cribs was not to mention we talked about this.
He is actually more known for his return skills.
Well, yes.
So then that would be special teams.
Let me expand upon that, however. We had this conversation off air, did we not? Kickers are offensive, punters are defensive. When you are returning, you're getting the ball back. Therefore, it is an offensive position.
Yes.
I don't disagree with giving Cribs a shout-out because the guy was a game changer, similar to a Dante Hall, similar to a Devin Hester. Shut up.
Can I go first for the Steelers? Because I think at least one of you guys will have the same as mine, and I want to do something funny with it.
I think we're unanimous on. Oh wait, no, because you might be you might have the modern one, whereas I think
no, I do not have the modern one.
All right, well then, so we're definitely going to have to take Cleveland defense to a vote because we all four have different people.
Yes.
Which reminds me, the votes came in, and unfortunately, we didn't get as many as we thought we were going to in this group poll. So clearly, we need to find a different source to vote this. Jason, post it on your Twitter, please, because your Twitter reaches more people than that group chat does, apparently.
Yeah, that's not saying a lot.
But
I really had high expectations for that group chat pulling us out, but they let us down, and I blame Robert's homosexual erotic love for Patrick Mahomes.
By a score of 3-2, Fran Tarkenton beat Adrian Peterson to win the Minnesota Offensive Player. We win, Erik. We win.
You can't beat the Mad Scrambler after all.
All right, let's wrap this up here and get to Pittsburgh offensively. Jason, you start us off.
I think that this is a no-brainer for me. I think you have to go with the quarterback that is pretty much the face of the franchise. That is a huge part of the Steelers history, and that's Terry Bradshaw. I mean, I think without Bradshaw, that Steelers team in the 70s would not be what it was and not have the titles that they do. He was like I said, he wouldn't light up a stat sheet, but he was a leader on the field, and I think that's more important than lighting up stat sheets. You know, we do have a lot of middle-of-the-road quarterbacks, one in particular that I'm very fond of, that doesn't light up stat sheets unless it's on the interception side. But he had the respect of his peers, and he did lead his team to 2 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I will have to lean to Bradshaw with a very honorable mention, and I will say this with all the utmost respect, because you could put him where he actually started his career, but he's most famous for where he ended up in Pittsburgh, and that's Bettis as being my honorable mention.
Jerome Bettis was my honorable mention as well, but I also stand alongside with you on the pick of the original TB12.
Damn it, you stole my line, Harry.
Well, Bisko, think of it like this. Who knew that in that 1970 season, Bradshaw was the second best Terry on his team? Look at where he took off from there. Even though he admitted he got to the Pro Bowl after only throwing for about 1,400 yards one year.
Yep. Yeah, I think
Terry Cloth being the most known person in the Pittsburgh area.
Yeah, I think unless Erik has someone else, I think we are all in agreement. The original TB12 and the beginning of the number 12 becoming the be-all, end-all number for quarterbacks. Terry Bradshaw.
With an additional honorable mention from yours truly to Terry's favorite wide receiver, Lynn Swann.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you could honestly throw Hines Ward into that conversation.
Oh, I mean
for being the receiver he was, and I don't respect him as a man, but I thought he was a hell of a player. I thought he was one of the dirtiest players in the NFL. But I think that he was when he stepped onto the field, I think he took things to a extreme at time, and he was labeled one of the dirtiest players in the game. But I think what he was part of in Pittsburgh was something that he will always be remembered, and justifiably, because he was a hell of an athlete.
All right, so I'm going to kind of give some perspective to what Jason said earlier about Bradshaw not lighting up the stat sheet. 28,000 yards in his career, 27,989. A career touchdown to interception ratio of 212 to 210. But here's the big kicker here. A career won-loss record as a starter of 107-51, which meant that he was the focal point of a lot of those prime Steelers teams back in the 70s.
See, Terry Hanratty, you don't feel so bad now, do you?
All right.
And just throwing this out there, he was the second best quarterback on his college football team.
I'm trying to remember where he went to college now.
Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
And who was the other quarterback on that team, Jason?
A little man that is known for making duck calls in Louisiana. That is the head of the Duck Dynasty organization.
Duck Dynasty.
What?
You did not know that?
Those bunch of frauds.
You guys really didn't know that? That he turned down he left college to start the duck call, which is the quote unquote Duck Dynasty, and that moved Harry Bradshaw into the starting role and kick-started his career. I have an inkling to offer tonight.
That was a way beyond. That was like next level meme-worthy squid bit. It's just a damn shame because I know how fake that entire family is. The knowledge is much appreciated, but personally, it's like, yeah.
I will say this much: that was a goddamn professional tidbit. There,
very, very, very well done. Damn, wanna be real life.
There have been a lot of really good Steelers defensive players, but again, I think this is one where one player in particular stood out to all four of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after all, you have to be some kind of an athlete to get a Coke commercial.
True.
Jason, take the lead once again.
I would have to say one of the most feared men in that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and that's Mean Joe Green.
The leader of the Steel Curtain.
Yes. I think, honestly, I'm going to hate myself for saying this. There is an honorable mention that is a little bit more recent, and that's Troy Polamalu.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he is also in the conversation, but you can't go wrong with saying Mean Joe Green. I mean, when you think about that Steel Curtain defense, and how intimidating it was to see. I mean, he had to do the Coke commercial just to get his image back where people didn't think he was the player, the intense player that he was seen on the field. So, yeah, I'm going to Mean Joe Green, and that's the only. I'm pretty sure that we may disagree on this, but I'm throwing it out there.
It's Mean Joe Green for me as well.
Same
the
here.
NFL,
honorable mention to Jack Ham, but same.
The NFL did not track tackles back in the 70s. They were not a trackable stat. The NFL did not track sacks back in the 70s. They were not a trackable stat back then. What the NFL should have tracked back then is players who shit their pants with the thought of having to face Mean Joe Green, because that stat would have been astronomical.
True.
Yeah.
And yes, the NFL did not start tracking sacks until 1982.
Bisko?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give a big honorable mention who I was originally thinking about picking, but
I actually have, real quick, I have an honorable mention too, but I'll let you go first.
Okay. My honorable mention is the same as Jason, Troy Polamalu. When you think of the modern Steel Curran, he was the man in Pittsburgh. But yeah, Joe Green was the Steelers' defense when they were the Steel Curran.
My honorable mention may draw some flack because of his reputation as a player, but on the field, when that whistle was blown and play was in session, there were very few better in Pittsburgh than number 92, James Harrison.
True.
Yeah.
He's in the conversation.
He definitely is in the conversation as well.
Harrison was kind of like the modern incarnation of Green in the fact that his reputation preceded him. He was not as dominant on the field as Green was, but he had the reputation that would make you afraid to line up against him. Erik, anything to add on the Mean Joe Green front?
I mean, not personally. Like we were saying about anchors, those defensive line, and we were talking about the Purple People Eaters when we did with the NFC North. Yeah, Mean Joe Green was the man for the Steelers at that time. And I'm not giving Polamalu an honorable mention because of what he did to Pat McAfee. Nuh-uh. No. Mm-mm.
So, to finalize, for Baltimore, it is Justin Tucker and Ray Lewis. Those who are listening cannot tell that I just visually rolled my eyes at these three on the video format of this podcast that we're doing as we record.
What's the worst pick for you? What's the hardest one for you to have to say? This one or me and Erik agreeing on the Tomlinson Sue?
Sue.
Well, Sue's dirty, but Lewis is a murderer, so I'm going to say Lewis.
Alleged. He was found not guilty. Let's get this right.
When you have money, you can get away with shit.
So wait, then by that logic, Erik, are you cool with OJ being your pick for Buffalo?
I mean, he did have a 2,000-yard season, but
you listen here, motherfuckers. Unless you want to incur the wrath of Bill's Mafia, you know where to fly for Buffalo offense.
Yes.
Getting back to the conversation at hand here. So, Ray Lewis and Justin Tucker for Baltimore. Chad Johnson, thank you, Brandon. And Ken Riley for Cincinnati.
Hey, get it right. It's the Ocho Cinco.
Jim Brown offensively for Cleveland. Defensively is a cluster fuck and a half. We'll take that to vote here on Twitter. See if we can't get any kind of response from that. Hopefully a better turnout than what we got from the people over on Facebook for that.
Yeah, I'm going to need the list. I'm going to need the list so I can put it up.
Joe Sherbert for me.
Clay Matthews Jr.
For Jason. Erik, your pick for Cleveland?
Joe Hayden.
Brandon, your pick for Cleveland?
And mine was, hold on a sec, let me find it. What the hell? Mine was... Crap,
wasn't yours from like the 50s?
60s.
Oh, okay.
Mine was Len Ford. Or no, Ken Riley, excuse me. Or no, Len Ford, I was right. That was
Ken Riley with Cincinnati.
Yeah, Ken Riley was for Cincinnati.
Len Ford?
Right.
Yeah, Len Ford.
And then we all agreed on Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was unanimous offensively and defensively. The original TB12, Terry Bradshaw, and Mean Joe Green for the defense. When we return next week for part 3, we travel to the NFC East.
Oh, this should be fun.
We start with Dallas, again, alphabetically. And then we deal with the New York Football Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington
Redacted.
Was waiting for one of you to finish that for me. So Dallas, Philly, Washington, and the Giants next week here on the Kickoff's greatest of all teams. Jason, where can people find you online?
You can locate me on Twitter at TurkeyGlue822. You will see the aforementioned poll going up here in the next 15, 20 minutes. So if anybody does listen to this and wants to go vote, give us a little insight, feel free to comment and vote at TurkeyGlue822. Like I said, I'm not going to be as asshole-ish as I normally am. I would appreciate your votes to see if we can get this lined out. So with that being said, at TurkeyGlue822, Twitter, go vote. And then after a couple of days, then I'll tell you to go fuck yourself.
Bisko, where can people find you online?
They can find me on Twitter at BiskoNMBChiefs, and they can find me on Facebook. Just look me up, and we can talk sports. What little there is to talk about right now.
Erik, how much Bundesliga did you watch, and where can people find you?
Well, if you would follow me on Twitter at SquidSportsHead, then you would know I would actually live tweeted my commentary, at least for the first 65 minutes, of today's 3-1 win by Borussia Mönchengladbach over Eintracht Frankfurt. But if you were not interested in my live tweeting, if you're not interested in my live tweeting, you can still look me up there. If you're interested in things like tutoring and other needs, or just want to talk about different stuff, you will find me on Facebook. Remember, guy in a recliner holding a glass of wine. Because there's about 4 people with my exact name spelled the exact same way. So I have to clarify that. And if you're on Twitter and happen to slide in my DMs, and you're willing to go through a very strict vetting process, you will get access to my dark Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Telegram, and all of my other places. And naturally, as always, this vlog brought to you by the fine people at Rick's TNT LLC.
By which he means himself.
Look, hey, I have a number and I am affiliated with Dun & Bradstreet. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, seriously, if you're looking for tutoring or you know anybody who's looking for tutoring, check Erik out. He's really, really smart. Cheap plug. All right. At HEB the Eagle on Twitter, Instagram, technically on Facebook too. If you go to facebook.com/HEB the Eagle, it takes you to my page. Harry Broadhurst, obviously, on Facebook as well. You can find me, if you want to talk wrestling, you can find me over in the Chair Shot Wrestling group over on Facebook. We are in the process of putting together a football group as well. I have a couple of football groups that I'm involved with, but we'll try to put one together for the show. We'll get a page put together for the show as well over on Facebook. But the main place to communicate with all 4 of us together is going to be through Twitter and by mentioning the Kickoff specifically. If you guys are interested, check out the W2M archives as well. Check out the Facebook archives as well. Check out all kinds of information that you can find for the W2M Network too. So all that's available on W2Mnet.com. Do we have anything else to say before we get out of here? Jason, what the hell are you doing?
I'm putting up the Twitter post, fucker.
Okay. Just wondering. You're like standing there like side-scrolling your phone, and I'm like, what is he do? I don't want to know. You realize we got through this entire thing without one family show tonight?
I tried, people. I tried.
I feel violated.
I'm pretty sure our guest host last night felt the same way.
Yes, I'm pretty sure she did too.
Again, Rachel.
Again, a special thank you to Rachel Krieger for her filling in last night for our News and Notes episode. All right, that's going to do it for us. So, which one do you prefer? Do you want me to use the not so silent Cohen, or do you want me to use the unprofessional?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I really don't give a fuck.
That answers my question for the unprofessional Jason Teasley. Go co-host turned executive producer Brandon Biskobing, the executive producer turned co-host Erik Watkins, and myself, Harry Broadhurst. You have been listening to part 2 of this week's Kickoff Adventures, the greatest of all teams, part 2, AFC North edition. We are a presentation of the W2M Network online at W2Mnet.com. In addition, you can find all of the information that you would want about any of the W2M Network shows by checking us out on W2Mnet.com and finding us on all of your favorite podcast listening services such as iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, CastBox. Hey, Brandon, guess what?
Spotify is here.
And Eric's still black.
I don't have anyone to call a dick today because we just did it yesterday. Again, this is a very family-friendly show-ish, by our standards.
By our standard.
Hold on. I got you, Harry.
Oh, God.
Brandon, guess what?
What?
You're supposed to say Spotify's here.
Oh, fine. Spotify is here.
And me and Eric's going jogging.
Yeah, no thanks. I haven't gained the quarantine 15. We're good.
The views and opinions of Jason Teasley do not necessarily, son of a bitch. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you guys next week for the greatest of all teams, part 3, NFC East edition of the Kickoff here on the W2M Network.